stories around Christmas time. Yeah, I'll be at one of my friends' house, and they'll be like, tell us a story about the shoes. You gotta hear the story about John Riggi and the shoes. and I'll tell the story. I didn't really like to tell it in the 90s because, yeah, the DeCavalcante crime family is what the Sopranos are modeled after. Yeah. There was a guy called Sam the Plumber, and he started it at the Kenilworth Diner. Yeah, it's a little background. And you could probably look it up, man. It's very well known. It was the main family here in Jersey. They worked out of Elizabeth. That's why during the Sopranos, you'll see that they pass exit 13. Yeah, because they worked out of a place called the Burg. We knew it as Peterstown. I grew up in Elizabeth. And I grew up sort of around like it was a multi-ethnic area, but it was mostly Polish, and you know, they had an Italian section, but they had Peterstown over there. They used to have St. Rocco's Feast. It was a feast. It was great. It was an Italian feast that went around the block. You know, and his kids, you know, like in a Bronx Story, he was looking at the wise guy, but that was a wise guy. This was, you know, the main dude. We call him the Godfather. You know, we'd wait for him as kids. We were like, John Riggi's coming. John Riggi's, here he comes, here he comes. And he'd be flanked by bodyguards, and he'd go to, you know, the Zeppeli stand, you know, and they'd give him his envelope, and they'd kiss the ring. Yeah. He'd go to, yeah, look, you know, as kids, you know. And so anyway, fast forward to 1988 or so. Yeah, sometimes the years, I think it was 88. And I started working at a place called Joey's Pizza. You know, I didn't know that he was Joey the Red. They called him Joey the Red. Yeah, I saw an article where they were like, real mob guy, you know, recent back then. So he's a guy
of pizza parlors through the years, including most recently Joey's Pizza. He was believed to have acted as a go-between for alleged DeCavalcante crime family skipper Charlie Big Ears Majuri.
He worked at a pizzeria. He owned a pizzeria. I was delivering pizzas. And Joey was at a festival one time, and somebody scared, it was either his father or an uncle. Later I found it was like a couple. Like somebody scared him, like, the guy got scared, it was a joke, and the next day he had a heart attack. Probably not even related, but in Joey's mind, he was a child. He thought, if somebody scares me, I'm gonna die. So me and Marcello, the pizza maker, we'd fuck with. I didn't know. He looked like Howdy Doody. He was like red-haired Italian with a few freckles. Not red, he was like off red. Yeah, so like, you know, and I was like, hey, what's up, Howdy Doody? I was calling him Howdy Doody. Yeah, because he never came across. No, never. He's like, you know, hard-working guy, had a girlfriend in Marlboro, you know, or something. And so the lighting's horrible. I don't have a ring light. I hate my glasses, so let me get that out of the way. So, yeah, because I'm looking at myself like, I wish I had a light in the front. And so we'd scare him. You know, he'd be by the cheese. We'd be like, yeah. He'd be like, you motherfucker. Yes, I swear to God, if I have a heart attack. And we would laugh. Me and my child would laugh. And so he'd always lose his keys. Yeah, and like one night, it was a Friday night. I was like, Joe, why don't you get, I was like 23. I was like, Joe, why don't you give me your, no, I was 25. I was like, why don't you give me your key? You know, make a copy. It never crossed my mind that I would key to pizza shop, because I used to work for Santillo's Best Pizza, by the way, in New Jersey. I worked with old man Santillo in 83 before his son took it over. It's a hole in the wall. It's a different story. Someday I'll tell you about Santillo's. That's a whole other ballgame. So, yeah, so like I used to have a key to Santillo's. You know, I've had a key to business. It doesn't cross my mind, oh, I have a key, I'm going to go inside. You know, even when I was using it, it never crossed my mind. So anyway, so I was like, Joe, why don't you give me the key? You know, I'll make a copy of it. You know, I'll bring it back tomorrow. This was Thursday night, because I worked Friday. I never work weekend. I never like to work weekends, but I would do Friday night. And I didn't like weekend mornings. So I said, yeah, I'll bring you the key, you know, Saturday, on Friday. And I forgot to give him the key that Friday. Yeah. So Saturday morning, I'm driving. I had to be up to laundry or something. And, yeah, I live close. So when I'm driving past, I see Joey's car. I was like, fuck, I got the key. Because I had the key in the car. I was like, oh, the key was here. I forgot to give it to him. So I got an idea. I said, oh, I'm going to scare the shit out. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to scare the shit out of Joey. Right. So I called Marcello from the payphone. It was several hours before, I put a dime, a quarter, whatever it was then. I was like, Marcello, I forgot to give Joey the key. And I'm driving by. He was like, yeah, he's probably making the dough in the back. I was like, I'm going to scare the shit out of him. He was like, bro, that'll be the best one of all time. I wish you had a camera, bro. I wish you had a camera. Yeah. So I walk up to the thing. It was a glass door. So I open the glass. I put my ear in and I hear. So I'm like, what the fuck is that? Sorry, guys. It's too long. Check out part 2.